You know, this is our regular innovation, the Dean's series on sustainable innovation, which has been focusing and featuring our very own talent and projects that have an innovative bent to them. And what we have asked individuals to do is to use this as an opportunity to reflect on lessons learned from their experiences, whether it is in the classroom, in research, in the field, and to inspire all of us to think innovatively as well. As you know, one of the questions we've asked in the past and we'll ask again is, if you had to begin again, what would you do differently, if anything at all? Today I'm very pleased to present Marty Kaplan and Johanna Blakely of the USC Annenberg's Norman Lear Center. Marty is also he's not only the director of the center, but also the holder of the Norman Lear Chair in Entertainment, Media, and Society, and no stranger to the Annenberg community. He has been a White House speechwriter, a Washington journalist. He has managed presidential campaigns. He has been a Disney studio executive. I'm not sure there's anything you haven't done, Marty. We can go
still
on.
trying to cure cancer.
Oh, okay. He is the father of a published author. He has all kinds of ones, and there's the dean. I'll just finish up the introductions and then hand it over to Ernie. Johanna Blakely is the deputy director of the Lear Center, where she performs research on celebrity culture, global entertainment, and digital technology. She holds a PhD in English from UC Santa Barbara, and has worked in and out of the high-tech industry, including as web producer, website reviewer, digital archivist, and research librarian. The project that they're going to talk to us about today is called the Creativity, Commerce, and Culture Project, which embraces artful combinations of scholarship, artistic work, and performance as it explores the creative, legal, and ethical issues facing authors, artists, and creators of all types in the age of entertainment and digital revolution. So I will let them talk a little bit more about the project and present their work, and we're delighted to have everyone join us. And let me just turn over to the dean for
I just want to say
final
thank you
comments.
for those comments and remarks. I just want to say that it is such a pleasure to have this innovation series where our own faculty and colleagues come in and describe the work that they're doing, the very innovative work that they are doing. Last year, as Carola may have mentioned, we had outsiders come in to talk about it, and now we're having our own faculty and colleagues do this work. I have to say that in many ways, the Lear Center, under Marty's direction, has been an inspiration for those of us at the school. They have done a great combination of bringing together scholarship, public engagement, visibility, mentoring younger people, and raising a lot of cash all at the same time, and having an impact on the scholarly world and on the practical world. So as we begin, as they begin their presentation, I want to thank both of them for the good work that they do, and for being such great citizens in the important work that's going forward. So thanks a lot.
Hi.
Hi.
Good morning. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Bernie and Carola, for that intro. Appreciate it. We're going to be talking today about creativity, commerce, and culture, one of our projects, but I'm going to start by putting it in a larger context. The Lear Center was founded 10 years ago, 10 centertaining years ago, as a way to bring academic study to the area of entertainment. In fact, to make a claim that entertainment studies was a real field, and to pursue it in a way which has a number of characteristics that I think, just taking the name of this series, which I think are innovative. It is multidisciplinary. It brings together people not only from the academy and different parts of the academy, but also an industry and also other academic institutions and nonprofit institutions. And there's one piece of it that is captured in our mission statement, which I wanted to emphasize. It's studying and shaping the impact of media and entertainment on society. Studying, yes, we do qualitative and quantitative research, and shaping. We meddle. We intervene. We try to make things happen in different worlds. Sometimes it's in the university world, but sometimes it's outside that. And we try to be innovative in both. If you don't know about the Lear Center or want to know more, over at the door there's this brochure which tells you all about it and also tells you about a number of our projects. We've got more than a dozen active projects. That's a list of some of them, some of which raise the dough that Ernie was talking about. I'm today, with Johanna, only going to focus on one of those projects, which is creativity, commerce, and culture. When the Lear Center began 10 years ago, we started with the hope that we would focus on a particular issue, the ownership of creative property in a digital age. So this has been a continuing interest and is a way of manifesting what the Creativity, Commerce, and Culture, to be henceforth known as CCC project, is all about. And we did it by building a partnership. I was then Associate Dean of the school, building a partnership with the law school, with Professor Erwin Chemerinsky, who now heads UC Irvine's Law School, and Dean Ruth Weisberg, the head of the Fine Arts School, and an artist. We built that three-way partnership, and the fourth was the Artists' Rights Foundation, which is an aspect of the Directors Guild, whose purpose is to look at intellectual property issues as they affect filmmakers, directors in particular. CCC, generally, how technology shapes art, media, and markets, is the kind of generic description. By creativity, we mean all kinds of creativity. We mean the arts, we mean entertainment, but we also mean, for example, science, which involves creativity. And every realm in which creativity is at its heart and which then is impacted by technology and has to deal with aspects of the culture, such as business and the markets, but also governments, laws, and regulations. The first project that we launched, which I just showed you on that red brochure card, was what came to be known as Artists, Technology, and the Ownership of Creative Content. Here is the book pictured up there that emerged from it, and you're welcome to have a look. This is the DVD, which is part of it, and I'm going to describe what it was. This was right in the middle of, this seems like 100 years ago. Do you remember Napster as it was then? It was right in the middle of the file-sharing P2P controversy, which was roiling not only the music industry, but universities all across the country. And we decided to plunge right into the middle of it and ask in particular the question, yes, we were talking about piracy, copyright sharing, and all those issues, but also to focus on the fact that the music industry, musicians, creative artists in music, have always borrowed from each other, been inspired by each other, sometimes sampled or stolen from each other. And that has always been part of the creative, destructive, creative tradition of music. And what we wanted to do was to ask whether the new technology in the form of Napster, creating a crackdown on sharing, was also harming creativity at the same time. And the way we chose to pursue it was to commission 4 case studies. This, I think, was an innovative act on our part. We found 4 people: professor of law, the head of an art museum, an attorney, and someone from business. And we had each of them write a case study in which the most difficult issues would somehow be included, the way in a law school a case study is built. And so they each wrote these case studies, and then at the conference, instead of reading the case studies, telling about what happened, we had 2 short comedic plays and 2 short movies, 2 short comedies, as a way of telling who was there what had happened. Here is a still from one of the movies. This and the script of all of those is in the book, as well as the DVD contains the plays and the movie. In this case, Artista is promoting her new book, That's Not My Dead Husband's Movie. And you can imagine the kinds of issues that arise in talking about that. We had, after the presentations of the case studies, there was a jury, probably more than 12 people, to respond to it. And on that jury, to talk about a mix, it went everywhere from the Registrar of Copyrights, John Podesta, who became the White House Chief of Staff, to a former member of the Grateful Dead. So we had lots of perspectives. And in the audience were a lot of lawyers, because they were getting continuing legal education credit for being there. It was a full house. We loved doing it. We created a beautiful book, but you can't have a book unless you can publish it. So we also invented the Norman Lear Center Press, which has now published many books. But this was the opportunity to do it first, and we care a lot about graphic design, as you can see there. We also care a lot about websites, and virtually everything that we do is accompanied by an active outreach on websites. So this is a particular example of it. So I'm going to take you through some of the subsequent activities of CCC. This controversy about copyright didn't die then and hasn't died now. And what we wanted to do was to have 2, maybe the 2 leading proponents of the sides which were duking it out with each other come here to the Annenberg School and duke it out. And so Jack Valenti, the late Jack Valenti, who was the head of the Motion Picture Association of America, and Larry Lessig, professor of law then at Stanford, came and presented both sides of the issue. Larry, being a bit of a joker, arrived with a pair of boxing gloves and silk robes, one saying Lessig and one saying Valenti. That's as close as Jack would get to that. But if you'd like, you can see that video or read the PDF of it. We almost always, when we have an event, will put online both the video and an edited transcript, because we've discovered doing analytics that for some people, breezing through a transcript is just what they want to do, and they don't want to deal with a video. So we've learned by looking at how people use us what is the most user-friendly. We turn to another topic. Television is based on the assumption that people who are 18 to 49 are the most desirable viewers of shows. If you can show that you have that viewership, you can charge more for ads. And what we decided to do was contest that idea. And we had a historian, Neil Gabler, who was a senior fellow of the Lear Center, do a history of how 18 to 49 came into being. And it turns out that it has 0 empirical basis. There is no evidence for the fact that 18 to 49-year-olds have more disposable income, or more susceptible to brand change, or any of the other urban legends which are still very much alive in the television business. And we put on a panel in which people from the television business, the advertising business, and also the AARP all were able to chew up and spit out this notion. Plus we commissioned an annotated bibliography so that anyone who wanted to do scholarship in this area had a head start by looking at that stuff. So I mentioned artist technology. That focused on music. There were people there from movies and television because it was also related to IP protection, but it focused on music. We then asked ourselves, what realm is also engaged in borrowing, deriving, ripping off, knocking off, being inspired by, but has no copyright protection? And does that realm thrive or fail as a big business? And the answer is fashion is such a realm. There is no copyright in fashion. You can trademark a label, but you can't copyright a design. So fashion lives and breathes no copyright. It is the wide open public sphere, and yet it is a very successful global business. So we wanted to bring people from fashion and get them together with people from music, television, and movies, and talk about their traditions. Tom Ford, the designer, now turned movie director, was our kind of organizing principle from the fashion world. You'll also see down in the third row, there's Danger Mouse, who had just done the Grey album. And so, and is John Taplin on there? No, but he was there. There's T-Bone. And one of the things that we did was to have a runway show. This is before Project Runway. We turned the Annenberg Auditorium into a place where fashion shows could be done. And so in the course of an investigation into intellectual property law and practices in these realms, we also had, for example, models coming down the runway and asked the audience, which one is the fake Chanel, which one's the real Chanel? That also turned into a book, which we have here if you want to look at, called Ready to Share, and a DVD, an original DVD, not a DVD of the event, but actually one commissioned to explore these issues. A kind of short documentary was also included in it. Another project in this sequence, we held a workshop here, and this shows how we tried to broaden to a global realm, in which, thanks to Professor Castell's helping build this partnership, which included two universities in Barcelona and Yahoo Research Europe and Barcelona Media, a research center. And we had a workshop that the dean, I believe, was able to come to part of, where we looked at a range of questions which included, it was right after the Writers Guild strike. And so I made a presentation on what was the impact of the writers' strike on the industrial production of television programming. We also looked at the way in which the media industries were being transformed by the existence of the DVR and its impact on advertising models. And we asked about measurement models for the web and measurement models for TV advertising to see if we could improve them. That led in turn to a project which analyzes how the television industry is responding to product placement, to the absence of reliable ad viewers, and that is through product placement, brand integration, and then at that time a relatively new phenomenon, Hulu, which I believe was just a few months old. So it was a way of asking what the industry was doing to respond, and in fact we had a postdoc from Barcelona, Marichel Rocasalas, who wrote, along with a former student in which program? Which Marissa Gluck? Com Management? Com Management graduate. Did a joint... Global Communication, sorry. Did a joint paper, which is still one of our most popular downloads. That's the paper that she produced. They produced, rather, looking both at the advertising industry and at the television industry and the ecology between them in this technological change. Then we went to Barcelona, Johanna and I. We were invited to give a presentation at the Barcelona Media Center, where we also had a workshop. And at that workshop, we talked about developing a project, which we did, which has led to a few proposals. But also, we gave a presentation on the business and culture of social media. I'm going to do that again so you can get to see a bit of it. This presentation, when it was given, was a PowerPoint. But then Veronica Houdeke, who is where? Where, Veronica? Oh, there you are. Transformed the PowerPoint into an amazing representation in which she was basically making it up as she went along. How do you turn a dynamic PowerPoint into something which people will want to look at online and not have to sit through slides, but actually be taken on what is in effect a storyboarded journey? And so that too is online. It's also one of our most popular downloads. We've been told that it was circulated in the legal department at Cisco and all the reporters at TruthDig, and we're now looking for other projects that will follow from that. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to Barcelona. I'm going to be a visiting professor there at the Open University of Catalonia's Internet and Society project, and I'm going to give a presentation which is the kind of big picture, as far as I can figure it out, about the digital transformation of the attention industries and audiences. I should say that at the Lear Center, how we define entertainment is that it is the capture and holding of attention, and the entertainment industry is what monetizes the capture and holding of attention. And by doing that, we look not only at things like television and radio and sports and fashion, but we also look at other realms in which the capture and holding of attention has become maybe even more important than their original functions. For example, news. For example, politics. And in some ways, imagine religion or urban planning and architecture. The way in which those realms are about capturing and holding and monetizing attention. So that's what I'll be talking about. I'm essentially asking the question, will what happened to the music industry and what happened to newspapers as an industry, will that happen to, is that happening to broadcast television, cable television, and the movie industry and publishing? And what are they doing about it, and is there a way for them to either prevent that disaster or figure out how to be transformed into a new business model? So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Johanna Blakely, who has been the Deputy Director of the Lear Center since almost its beginning. And if you're looking for a non-secretive innovation, but which is a truth about lots of institutions and Lear centers, and centers, the Lear Center, no one can do it alone, but in particular, no one can do it without Johanna.
Thank you, Marty. Should I use this thing or no? No? Okay. Do you have a clicker?
Here you go, sorry.
Yeah. So for quite some time now, we had wanted to take the analysis that we had done under the auspices of the CCC project to the sciences, the academic sciences. We thought it was really interesting to compare what was happening in the fashion industry in terms of sharing and collaboration and building new things out of other people's work, Compare that to what happens within the academy with the sciences. So we had a conversation with Randy Hall, who is the Vice Provost for Research here at USC. We told him about our project, and he said, gee, I've been looking for someone to lead some kind of effort here, campus-wide, not just the sciences, all the disciplines, to talk about how we can be more creative and more collaborative within the academy. He was a little anxious that there are too many barriers in place at the university stopping people from, for instance, interdisciplinary collaboration, which can be pretty tricky to fund and tricky to logistically pull off. And so we enthusiastically said yes. And over the last couple months, we've conducted 5 workshops with faculty from all across campus, generally grabbing people who are sort of interested in technology and how that might be used for new collaborative research, both within a discipline and interdisciplinary research. We've brought together 66 faculty, I think from 30 departments, 13 schools, 5 institutes and centers, and let me tell you, it was a pretty vibrant dialogue. This is a really knotty, difficult issue to address, and it's not just the old guard meets the new guard. There are a lot of deep issues at play when you're trying to sort of reshape and reframe what academic pursuit is. These were the questions that we asked them. What are the best practices in research collaboration that you know? What are the barriers to research collaboration at USC? And there are a few. How can USC further develop a culture of innovation that supports creative ways to conduct and collaborate on research? One thing we learned from this group of faculty and from an NSF report that I've since read is that if you want to get big grants at a university, you can put together a fabulous interinstitutional group of people who work together, the best and the brightest. But the most successful grants, according to NSF, are the ones that have a critical mass of people at one university. So if you can't find your colleagues in other disciplines at your own university who are the right ones to work with you, it's more likely NSF is not going to see this as a successful effort. If you're within the same infrastructure, reporting to the same provost, responding to the same pressures, it's just going to be a lot easier for you to pull off a great project. That's not to say that international collaboration is not a great thing, but you have to have critical mass within a university. So we focused on USC. One thing we did at these sessions is we asked these academics, all these faculty members, to sort of think about how their ecology of creativity, how their labs and their classroom experiences, their design studios, are analogous to the kinds of spaces within which creative work is done in the creative industries, where musicians work, where filmmakers work, where fashion designers work. Is there anything that can be learned across this wall, this barrier that we perceive? We reminded them that marketing, distribution, reputation are not only the problems and the concerns of music labels and of film studios, but it's also the concern of universities. They too have to raise money, attract audiences, attract students, and they need to be able to represent their creative personnel to the world in a way that attracts the proper kind of attention and funding. We asked them to think about how they're going to find their audience with the creative work that they're doing in the academy. And I think we made it pretty clear over these 5 workshops that this probably isn't the way that creative work is going to be distributed in the future from the academy.
Oh, shucks.
I know. We were just in the health sciences library, and boy, was it grim. I took all these pictures of these long aisles of, journals bound up, not a single soul anywhere there. So all creative people make stuff. But creative people within the academy tend to generate something we call knowledge. And that's a special kind of product. That's the kind of product that we have certain expectations for. We expect that it's going to be passed on seamlessly to students, it's going to be shared with colleagues, and it's meant to benefit society. That is the mission of USC, and most universities, I'd venture to guess. But there are countervailing forces, of course. We always have to worry about money. And it turns out that a lot of the smart people in the university are coming up with some great ideas that you can patent. and that you can copyright, and that you can sell, and that you can raise corporate funding for. Think of biotechnology, information sciences, information technology, computer science. All of this really came to maturity within the university. And a lot of that work was patent protected in order to make money for the university and for the creators of that work. That stuff, that knowledge was not necessarily seamlessly shared with students, with colleagues, and with society at large. And so some people have been very critical about the way in which the university has turned into something that looks a little bit more like a corporation than an academic institution. So this is one of the sort of battles that we're trying to understand within the university. And we thought, well, who's doing a really good job solving difficult problems with new technology? This was always our focus. Randy Hall was really interested in new technology, and that's always been at the core of our CCC project. Who's doing great collaborative work? And so we looked around at some best practices. We, introduced these ideas to, mention some of these projects to these faculty workshops, and thought, why can't we do this here at USC? Then, of course, that led to the conversation about barriers to collaboration at the university. Maybe, first of all, tenure guidelines, which often, or usually, privilege individual work. Over and over again, we heard faculty saying, I don't see the checkbox on my form that says you collaborated. Oh, you're a collaborator. We'll give you tenure. That's just not the way universities generally run. And so this is one of the issues that we're facing as we try to figure out how to make USC in particular more innovative and more light on its feet. Now, these 66 faculty members had lots of great ideas. I mean, a surfeit of ideas. This is just a few bullet points so you can sort of get a sense of the direction that they were taking. There are lots of wonderful things that can be done, and our next step, we just finished these workshops this week, is to rifle through all these, make some recommendations, go back and forth with Randy Hall, figure out what sort of recommendation we should make to the provost. And another thing that we're planning is a public event in the fall, and it's probably going to be about innovation in the academy, not just here, but also elsewhere. And we would love to have your input on that. And that's the end.
So both of us would be delighted to ask questions, to answer questions. Well, we can ask him too. We're going to ask him too. What did you think?
So, if I may
Please.
just come in back to the question we posed initially.
And is it okay if I sit so that
Yes,
Johanna's
absolutely.
here and we're all
Absolutely.
great?
Are there lessons that you learned in the course of developing all these great projects, and if you had to go back and do them again, you might do anything differently, or do you think that they all worked out?
Or
In their own
also,
way.
sort of what lessons might you share with others
Right.
that you did, that maybe it was innovation, you tried an experiment and it did work, but then others in the room might benefit?
Well, to answer, try to answer both sides, the question of things that we would do differently, every politician is always asked that question and has a dumb answer, a phony answer. I mean, Winston Churchill used to say, I would have bet red instead of black in Monte Carlo. That's what I would have done differently. I wouldn't have done anything differently. I think we hit a home run in this stuff. I am thrilled that we were able to do it. I don't want to invite the wrath of the gods, but I'm very proud of the methods and the success that we've used. In terms of lessons learned, I'll just mention a couple, and why don't you chime in. The faculty members who are at a university, who are the least able to collaborate or participate in anything that we do, are people who don't have tenure. They are terrified that anything that they do which either smacks of being involved in the public realm or not in their core discipline and individual rather than teamwork, for them that is not only a diversion, but it's a check mark against them in their schools. The people who are best at collaborating are either people who are not on the tenure track or who are the most senior people in the university. When the Lear Center began, as I was trying to put it together, I went to every person who held a chair at USC called university professor. And I went to everybody who had a chair called distinguished professor. This was 10 years ago. It was a smaller number. I was able to do it in a month of lunches. And not a single person turned us down to work with us. And that includes, for example, the then head of NSF Research Center at the engineering school, Max Nikias. So working with, never assume that the most senior people are unavailable. Assume that they are your target.
One thing I would add is that I think one reason that the project has been really successful and really engaging from beginning to end is that we've let it grow organically and move in whatever direction felt right at the moment. We didn't have some sort of hard and fast plan at the beginning. Well, we're going to move to fashion, and then we're going to move to the future of television, and it was never like that. We just took opportunities as they arose. And that's something that I think characterizes a lot of projects at the Lear Center. And it's something I learned about during these faculty seminars about creativity and collaboration. People who had worked on really large, international, interdisciplinary projects had said, the most important thing is that you don't have a plan at the beginning. Because if you have a plan at the beginning, it quashes all of the creative dialogue and all the new discovery that comes out of these new meetings. He said, make the plan after you've gotten to know each other and after you've gotten to know one another's language. So it was a really interesting thing to learn.
And just to emphasize that, being opportunistic also includes fundraising. We are at all times possessed of a dozen ideas that we want to match. My formula for doing anything is you need a great idea that's consistent with your mission, which you can be open to at any time, but once you grab, hold on to it tenaciously. You need somebody. You need a leader. You cannot do anything unless someone will be, as Jeff Cowan puts it, the chief warrior about that. It can't be me. I'm happy to be a partner and an enthusiast and all the other thing, an enabler, but it can't be me. So something needs a great idea, a person, and money. And so we are always trying to put those things together. And sometimes we meet with people who have money but not ideas. And we try to pitch to stuff that they might be interested in. So having a bunch of stuff, we have a couple of ideas that we've been pitching for 10 years that no one's been interested in. We still love them, and so we're always going to be trying. And when we have some ideas that we had no idea we would be doing, but when we came across somebody or someone came across us, and they were really passionate about the idea, and it fit with our mission. That's another piece. You have to have a mission. The mission has to be narrow enough so that you're not everything. But it has to be broad enough that you're not saying, no, this is us and this is not us with too fine a sieve. John.
What you said about tenure syncs up with a lot of what I'm hearing, but it also disturbs me. Because when I look at the words technology shapes art, media, and markets, I would say that I would rather hear from the 28-year-old assistant professor on tenure track than the 60-year-old distinguished professor, university chair. I mean, not to put down the wisdom of the elders, but I'm saying in terms of somebody who's on Facebook, who's living in social network world, and yet they're not allowed or can't dare cross-collaborate between Annenberg and the engineering school and the cinema school, which is what we hear, seems to me really problematic. How do we solve that problem?
Well, you're absolutely right. Two ways we go about it is, one, our students don't seem to have that issue. And so we learn from people who come and are interns in our projects or a postdoc in our projects. We have a relatively young staff, and so in their lives, technology is a presence. And because we think of ourselves as a bridge between the academy and elsewhere, we work as often as possible with people in the industries who know what they're doing and are trying to make money off it. But solving that problem in the academy is really important and came up often in these workshops.
Yeah, especially it came up during our digital humanities workshop. It was mostly humanities and arts people, and there were 3 or 4 people who really strongly suggested that USC develop mentorship programs where younger people, students, graduate students, untenured faculty, would mentor older faculty about technology issues and new media, and it was a large chunk of our conversation that day, actually, because I think in the humanities in particular, this is really a painful issue. Yes?
Sometimes change takes a fairly long time, particularly in academia. And I know you've seen in the 10 years you've been operating tremendous changes in the industries that you look at. What would you say have been the major changes at USC in the past 10 years? And if you look 5 years ahead, what kind of changes might you expect?
Well, first, let me dispute, surprisingly, one aspect of it, which is that the university can change on a dime, and that a university like USC, which is entrepreneurial, can do so. I came up with the idea of an entertainment initiative. This is before the Lear Center, to involve as many schools and faculties as I possibly could, and got it funded by the provost. And within 1 year, there was a new entertainment track at the undergraduate level at Annenberg and at the graduate level, and 11 new courses had been approved in that area, all within 1 year. So, I mean, people's eyes were spinning. But it is possible if you are willing to build coalitions and also willing to take on fights in which you'll make mortal enemies, which happened to be the case. Changes in the university. I mean, these are the glory golden years of Steve Sample's fundraising and investment in the university, and so everybody wants to be a part of stuff going on here. I mean, it was never a tough sell with any other institution to say be part of us. So the opportunities kept increasing all during that time. Obviously, in the outside world, there were changes. And digital technology, I think, has to be the number one, because it invaded and changed, as I mentioned a moment ago, music and print journalism, and is now roiling every other aspect of the information industries that are dependent on content and copyright.
I'll mention a couple things that some faculty members had said at, I can't remember which meeting it was, but a guy from psychology, Jack McArdle, and somebody else said, actually USC is in a pretty good position to become more innovative than other universities its size. His feeling was that, and this was seconded by some other people in the room, was that because we're not a public university, we have a bit more freedom, and we have never quite. We are not an Ivy League university. We try to follow the rules, but those rules are not the ones that are going to take us into the future. And so there was quite a bit of positive speculation about how a large private university like USC in a city like Los Angeles is better positioned to turn on a dime than other universities of the same size.
Let me maybe just follow up just briefly on that, is that the current provost of the university gave a talk, I think it was last year, it was a named presentation.
Promethean University.
Yeah. Right, the Promethean University. And it was quite interesting, because he said that to be a great university you need a handful of things, 3 or 4 things. And among the 3 or 4 was a powerful sense of communication, and a communication school, and a commitment to communication. He then said at a provostial retreat some months ago, he was asked, I think it was the dean of the engineering school said, Harvard, Stanford, MIT are associated with a couple of big things, big inventions. And so the question on the table was, well, what's USC's big thing? And Provost Nikias said, well, you know, I think it probably has something to do with biotechnology, but especially it has to do with digital technology. That is a field we can excel in, that we can make the greatest contribution in, and also by doing so, will shine light on the university and give us a very unique position. So I think that the work that Marty and others in the room are doing is precisely right on target for that trajectory. I also, just putting in a plug, would say that the Annenberg School, I think, is well placed to play a role in helping the university make this transition to being unequivocally the best in the world in digital media. And I think that Marty has shown us, and Johanna, very interesting ways in which that can be done. And so I just hope that we can accelerate, in fact, this kind of work, this sort of collaborative work, moving ahead, because I think it will redound to the benefit of the school and the university, and dare I say, the future of the world.
One thing I'd mention about that Max Nikia speech, one thing that was really interesting about it, he said he was really emphasizing the importance of new media and digital technology and said we should develop amazing distance education programs, obviously. So why do we need a campus? He kept coming back, why do we need this physical location? Why do we need all these hot bodies and rooms? It's expensive. Why are we doing it? It's like, that's where great collaborations happen. You need the spontaneous interaction of human beings with a glass of wine and a bad cheese plate talking about their work before really interesting collaborations occur. And let me tell you, that was the #1 theme of all the workshops.
It was hilarious because Randy Hall was so desperate for new technology,
Yeah.
and they kept saying a coffee pot,
A bed and breakfast.
a bed and breakfast for visitors, blackboards in the hall,
Yeah.
that was as much on that score as it was on the other score.
Totally, you need both.
If there are any donors in the room, we need to remodel this building, and we would be happy to do that.
That's true.
He also spoke at that speech about redefining literacy and how we need to be at the forefront of redefining literacy for this new era. Did that come up in these discussions? Yeah.
Oh yeah, especially the people from the Institute for Multimedia Literacy who were at a couple of our conversations. They talked about, often what they talked about were needing translators, right? So it's not that you're going to make everybody multimedia literate. You're not going to make the old faculty members as multimedia literate as the 18-year-old student in the classroom. It's just probably not going to happen. So you need translators. You need people who are trained to speak within a certain discipline and understand its research priorities and what they do, but to also understand the tech tools, to be producers, basically. So this was often how that conversation ended up playing out.
This is a tangent, less related to literacy and to what Johanna was just describing. At one of the workshops, I think it might have been in the health sciences, the point was made that the job talks and hiring process is a terrific opportunity for the schools to develop collaborative relationships. That people who don't talk to each other and don't come up with the ideas that they might want to work on are sparked and catalyzed by the fact that some new person is around among them having these conversations, and that it is a pity to let that new entity as an organism of collaborators just dissolve when the person is hired and it's all over. That to use that as one of those cross-pollination translating opportunities.
You had mentioned ideas that you've been flogging that haven't yet landed or taken root. Can you mention some of those?
Sure.
Or are there ones that you think we should be picking up collectively and maybe helping advocate and push forward?
Do you want to talk about ETG?
Entertainment goes global. That has been my baby for a long time. That's what I originally interviewed for before the Lear Center existed. I had applied for a project manager position for a project that was turned into a joint project between Annenberg and international.
The Pacific Council for International
And the
Policy.
Pacific Council for International Policy. A project manager for a project called Entertainment Goes Global. I thought, well, I'm coming from this global video game company, and I've been working on these bizarre translation Bibles, right, to localize products country by country. And I thought this would be a great way to go back to academe. And so that was really the first hook for me. And then Norman ended up making this very generous donation, and the center was developed, and I was hired instead to oversee a bunch of different projects that I found fabulous and interesting. But EGG has always been my love. And I wrote a proposal to get some money from Rockefeller, which we really should have gotten. And, we didn't get it. I posted the proposal on our website. It is still in the top 15 of our most downloaded PDFs on our website. It's being taught in all kinds of courses. I see it quoted in communication theory journals. this is a project we should be doing, but we just can't find anybody to fund
Let me
it.
maybe do a little collaboration. We're going to be talking, and I suspect this has been your experience too, is that it seems that industries that used to not talk to universities a lot are starting to talk to them maybe a little bit more than they did in the past. And so we've had a couple of conversations with Disney, 4 conversations with Disney, with the folks who are the sort of vice, whatever the title is, the person responsible for doing deals, production deals in India, China, Russia, etc. And so we're going to have our 4th or 5th meeting with them. At the last meeting we brought in 15 people from around the world who were experts on China communication. And we took them up to Disney World place, which is pretty weird. They have these mouse ears all over the place. Interesting, but a different culture.
12 years.
That's
Of wearing
right.
the mice
No,
ears.
Yes. Yes.
Or the mouse ears.
Yes.
That's right. And so they're saying, gee, what can you guys tell us about global communication? Because they just got permission to build a $3.4 billion theme park in Shanghai after having not been, I'm sure this wasn't under your direction, but having not been very successful in Paris or in Hong Kong with theme parks.
I warned them.
Hindsight is always so good. So this might be an opportunity. And then also the head of global television marketing for CBS, who a couple of us ran into in Abu Dhabi, is also interested in partnering with the university. So I think that maybe across this table now we can do some collaboration. And we got the guy who's coming, Shanghai Media Group.
One thing,
The CEO is coming over here shortly.
one thing that I've learned, which I find shocking, is that none of these companies really know their markets. I assumed that there was a ton of proprietary research that they were funding that we just couldn't get our hands on. They have no idea. I mean, they know a lot about the domestic market and some about some of their European territories, but virtually nothing about huge and important consumers of their material.
So we'll talk. Anybody else interested in this topic? We'll get together after this meeting and do a little collaborative, synergistic
Coffee.
stuff on your number one.
Let's go.
And I do want to say, because I know we're sort of running just about to our hour, that I want to announce in the same vein that one of our professors who works very closely with the Lear Center, Josh Kuhn, is going to be talking about the Popular Music Project, which had
Of the Lear Center.
Right, had great.
That's another example of Josh, an idea, and in this case, it was the Lear Center funding it.
Right. So I think what what my dream is for this school is that there will be 100 flowers blooming that are exactly like this. And Jonathan Taplin is working on a project now that will bring together external partnerships. And it's taking place in the journalism school, and the communication school, and the Center for Public Diplomacy. And so I think what you're seeing today is an example of a very important trajectory that's been moving in the right direction, and I'm quite confident will only accelerate. So I invite everyone in the room to collaborate, to meet around the coffee pot, to share ideas with one another, and certainly with the leadership of the center, and certainly those of us in the leadership of the school. So let me thank our 2 innovators.